This is a business case proposal in reference to Major League Baseball Revitalization Initiative. This presentation, developed by Team3, alerts MLB where proper implemented change management will improve current downward trends. Major League Baseball attendance has steadily been on a decline since 2012, which just happens to be the last year it was higher than the previous year. Along with steady decrease in attendance and lack of interest from younger fans, Major League Baseball has been experiencing declining revenues. Major League Baseball can draw the power of the Generation Z consumer dollar by marketing to the things or items that interest them.
Going into our needs analysis, we identified the root causes of MLB's decline in popularity to be ineffective social media and marketing efforts, a lack of action leading to slow pace of play, and a league-wide financial competitive imbalance. Starting with social media, MLB has struggled to consistently develop exciting content while avoiding improving their fan engagement tactics. As you can see in the table here, MLB's social media following on all sites isn't even close to that of the NBA or the NFL. TikTok in particular has become a great way to capture a younger audience, but the league is still yet to fully embrace its use, with only 14 teams having accounts and only the Chicago Cubs having more than 100,000 followers on the platform. On top of that, MLB Advanced Media continues to enforce overly strict social media policies as they maintain tight control over how their product is distributed. They've repeatedly suspended third-party social media users for posting game highlights, limiting the spread of their content. These strict policies even apply to individual teams' social media accounts by limiting the number of highlights teams can post during games. To make matters worse, MLB abruptly laid off all of their in-game social media coordinators without warning this past February, even though they became an important resource for individual teams' social media staffs, and league content creation is sure to fall off as a result. Now focusing more on marketing, the league still fails to market the sport around its star players, limiting their visibility. Mike Trout, the sport's best player, is only known by 22% of the American public, making him a replacement-level celebrity. League officials continue to refuse to take responsibility for this, with Commissioner Rob Manfred even going so far as to put blame on the players for not pursuing more of their own sponsorship opportunities to elevate their brands. Pivoting towards the game itself, MLB is also struggling to make baseball more exciting for new viewers, as strikeouts are at an all-time high with 1,000 more strikeouts than hits being recorded this past April. The league-wide batting average is also currently sitting at .234, which is on pace to be the lowest in league history. While this is partly an indication of pitchers simply being better than ever before, the league also changed the way baseballs were made this past offseason, which has led to a huge drop-off in home runs. However, MLB continues to confuse the concept of reducing the time needed for games and pace of play. The league has recently instituted new rules such as limits on visits to the pitcher's mound, relief pitchers needing to face a minimum of 3 batters, runners being placed on second base to begin extra innings, and 7-inning doubleheader games. But most of those moves shorten the time needed to complete the game, not create more action or reduce the time between pitches as seen with the graph on the right. More so than any other sport, big market teams in baseball continue to exhibit a big financial advantage over smaller market teams. Being the only league without a salary cap, big market teams are only forced to pay luxury tax for going over a certain spending threshold, but many of these teams can afford to pay better players because of their ability to generate a lot more revenue. As you can see here, MLB team payrolls can range anywhere from almost $200 million down to almost $50 million. While big market teams like the Yankees and Dodgers have maintained steady attendance numbers, smaller market teams continue to see decreasing attendance, which has skewed the league average. A big reason for this imbalance is the league's current revenue sharing plan with TV contracts. Only 50% of TV revenues are shared with the whole league, and many of these big market teams can now have their own TV networks where they can capitalize on larger revenues that other teams do not have access to. The league also suffers from a lack of team spending minimum on players. A big reason why fewer people show up to games in these smaller markets is because they can see how these teams largely refrain from investing a large amount of money into their rosters. This disparity has created greater predictability for the sport, as the teams who spend the most money are typically the main contenders for the World Series every year.
So how will we be addressing these issues and securing the baseball fans of now and the future? Our revitalization initiative is comprised of 3 separate projects that each address one of the 3 critical issues impacting the MLB, which are poor social media and marketing strategies, the slow pace of MLB gameplay, and the lack of financial parity among the teams. This stakeholder map includes the major stakeholders that will be involved in this initiative. Those that are active will be directly involved in the implementation of new marketing strategies, changes to gameplay, and changes to the league's salary structure. Those that are passive will be affected through these changes, which expectantly will be more engaged fans as well as fans overall, a greater value in partnering with the MLB, and increased economic activity for team communities. In order to remain a staple of American professional sports for years to come, the MLB needs to put a larger emphasis on marketing towards younger generations, particularly on social media and on new content mediums. To start, the MLB needs to relax their strict social media policies for teams and encourage social engagement and new content creation among teams. This can be done through things like more behind the scenes access through social media apps like Instagram and Facebook, or investments into producing engaging docuseries similar to the NFL's very successful Hard Knocks. Another huge area of exploration will be new forms of viewership. Our target age demographic consumes more sports content on social media than any other age group, which makes partnerships with apps like Twitter to stream games live very appealing for baseball as well as advertisers. To attract more casual fans and newcomers to the game, new rules to gameplay must be implemented to decrease the amount of dead ball time. Fortunately, the MLB has the ability to use the minor league as a guinea pig to test out ideas. Popular ideas include a time limit for pitchers to release the ball and limits to defensive shifts and pickoff attempts, which are guaranteed to speed up gameplay. Finally, the league needs to address the huge payroll disparity among the MLB's elite and small market teams to create a more competitive atmosphere. It's unreasonable for one team to pay two players the same amount another team pays their entire roster. There are numerous ways to begin to curb this issue. There needs to be the introduction of max contracts and a new revenue sharing system that doesn't strongly favor any particular markets, similar to the NBA's model. Furthermore, teams that do overspend need to face meaningful consequences to discourage this behavior.
We had some assumptions going into this project, the first being that baseball is boring to casual sports fans. There are a multitude of reasons for this to be the case, such as games taking a long time due to pace of play and a lack of constant motion. The second assumption is the declining trend if no changes are being made. Currently, the MLB is losing viewers and attendance is going down year after year. If nothing were to change, then there is no reason to assume viewership and attendance will improve on their own. The last assumption is that loss of traditionalist fan base due to fans getting older, and the traditionalist fans tend to be older than most other fans. These traditionalists want baseball to remain the same, so they dislike any changes to the sport, whether it be rules or another aspect. Eventually, these fans will die due to age, which will translate to lower viewership and attendance. And on the graph to the right of the slide is Gen Z and their interest for all the sports compared to all the adults. Our change management strategy. The best change management strategy for the MLB would be the change curve model. And the change curve model has 4 stages. Status quo, which is the reaction to it is generally shock and denial. The second stage is disruption, which is reaction is anger and fear. The third stage, exploration, which is generally accepted by the employees. And stage 4, rebuilding, which is where they're committed. And in the graph to the right, you can see that at first the impact is negative until stage 3, where it starts to turn upward. And in the end, you are in a better place than when you started. Major project milestones. Rules implemented by the 2022 season. Updating a certain pace of play rules will help reduce the time it takes to complete games, which will lead to a more inviting experience for casual fans. Loosened social media policies by the 2023 season. Currently, the MLB has very strict rules about what can and cannot be on social media. Loosening these rules will allow younger generations to become fans of baseball. And new content announced by 2022 season and published by 2023 season. In the short term, we will focus on podcasts because they are relatively easy to produce. However, in the long term, the focus will be on MLB documentaries, which will be similar to Last Dance, 30 for 30, and a Football Life documentaries. And to the right of the slide are the numbers for viewership of The Last Dance on the original airings. In conclusion, we identified the root causes of decline for the MLB, which happen to be ineffective social media and marketing strategies, lack of action and slow pace of play, and competitive imbalance between teams. The solutions for the ineffective social media were less restrictive social media policies and producing original MLB content. The solutions for the lack of action and slow pace of play were updating outdated rules to speed up games, And the solution for competitive imbalance between teams was a hard salary cap with a minimum spending amount for teams. Thank you, and we'll open up the floor to any questions at this time.